So this is really when you use those things. So all of this whole workshop format is based on what I call agile thinking. And this is where we get in the field of agile. Well, what is agile thinking? For me, it's a framework of 6 principles that actually is underlying every single agile method out there. Every single practice as well. So whether you call it TDD or CI or any of those practices, whatever it is that you know, they're all based on agile thinking. And I'm going to, from a very high level, I'm going to explain it right away. So what are the principles? There are 3 core principles, and there are 3 supporting principles. And the first one is know the objective. What is it that you're trying to achieve? So for this workshop, we said that from the very beginning. We said what we're trying to achieve is we're trying to find a way to better run workshops, to get more outcome from our workshops. That was our goal, that was our objective. What is the goal of TDD? Does everybody know what TDD is around this test-driven development? Test-first development? You know? You do know? Everyone knows? Okay. So, test-driven development, what is the goal for that? What are you trying to achieve?
Working code.
Create working code.
Code quality.
Code quality, tested code before you even write the code. So, always have tested code. And also there is a kind of a secondary goal there, and that is knowledge sharing to some degree, and clean design. So, sorry, I thought I pressed on that button. So know the objective, that's principle 1. The second one is understand your context. Understand your context in which you're trying to achieve that goal. So for this workshop, the context is, well, you have a lot of people around the room, they come from different backgrounds. Some of them hopefully are business people, some of them will be technical people, some of them will be actually working in your project, some of them will not. They're just bystanders and they come along to basically augment the knowledge in the room. Some of them will have an awful lot of time and it will be their full-time job to be in that workshop. Some of them will actually do you a favor and spend 2 hours and clear that agenda in order to make it there. So this is a very important contextual information for your workshop as well, right? What are you trying to achieve? Also, if you want to write all these things down in a Word document or in a PowerPoint or wherever that is, you're losing very valuable time. So I never work with those things from the get-go. So understanding the context is a very important aspect. And the third one is, now you know what your objective is, now you understand what your context is in which you're trying to achieve that objective, see if the actions that you do actually get you closer to that goal. So each and every question that I ask you gets us closer to that goal. We have, first thing is, how can we improve workshops? Now we started with, give me a list of all of the problems with workshops, and then give me the most important problems of that list. So we actually have narrowed it down already, and we get closer to our objective. That's the first piece of feedback that we already have. And I didn't ask you that before, but you worked 6 minutes, in fact. So it was 8 minutes. So you had 3 minutes, you had 2 times 2 minutes, and then you had 1 minute for the prioritization. So you had 8 minutes in total, and with a little bit of debrief that obviously is longer for the sake of this workshop. With a little bit of debrief, let's say that it's 10 minutes in total. Would you come to the same aligned conclusion if you all had worked in one team and had one list to brainstorm on? Probably not, right? And even if you had, it would be the input of 3 or 4 people around the room. The rest would not be as engaged to turn it into actions in the end. Now it's all your problems. All of you have actually worked on it. All of you have contributed to defining the list of problems that we're actually trying to solve, which makes you more accountable to helping solve that problem, right? Okay, so seek fast feedback, and then you go back, and it's a circle. That's what you do. That's what agile thinking is. So those are the 3 core principles. Then you have 3 principles that support these principles. Use iterations. We use very short ones in order to seek feedback faster or build feedback into your process. That's really what it is. Reduce waste so that you can get faster to the objective. Get rid of all the things that are not getting you closer to that objective. And collaborate as opposed to cooperate. Collaborate because that's a hell of a waste reduction if you're actually able to do that. And I force you to collaborate, you have no choice. And I do this with executives as well, by the way. So and they do it just as much. It's not a problem once you set it out. So I want to make sure that I stop by waste for a tiny bit, because that might be very important. What this workshop is doing is cutting out as much waste as I have ever found. Well, all of the waste that I've ever found in a workshop, I tried to cut out. This is how I ended up with this format. So for people who do not know what waste is, I'm going to summarize it a little bit. It really actually is. I heard that from Mary Popenick. It's anything that draws attention away from delivering value. Anything that does not deliver value or does not get you closer to your end goal is actually considered waste. Okay? Now, Toyota Production System, TPS, Lean, actually the forefather of Lean, identifies 7 types of waste. There is like an 8th that I added, because it's oftentimes associated with software engineering. But there is some discussion about whether or not it's part of that first group. So the first one is work in progress. I'm going to explain it, I'm just going to explain it, period. Not based on a certain example. So work in progress, anything that you're working on. Let's say you're building cars. While you're building your car, you cannot invoice for it. You can invoice for it at the end. Well, I know that car companies actually invoice for it in the beginning, but let's just ignore that for a second. Anything that is in progress, you're adding work to it, you're adding effort in it, but you cannot get the value from it yet. It's just the way it goes. So that also immediately makes clear that you will always have waste. Like for instance, there's an awful lot of motion waste in this workshop, but it's very functional as well. We'll get to that later. So overproduction. Any car that you build that you cannot sell is effort that you spend that you cannot invoice for. That's waste as well. It doesn't contribute to the end goal, which is making money off building cars, selling cars actually. Third one, defects. Whenever you need to call a car back because there's a defect with it, and then you need to fix it, the time that the engineers or the people in the factory are spending on fixing that car is time that they cannot spend on building a new car that you can invoice for. That's another type of waste. And transportation and motion are best explained together. So transportation is the car moving, or the product moving, and motion is the worker moving. So for instance, if the car comes from a conveyor belt, needs to be transported over to another conveyor belt, maybe in a different building, then the whole time that this car is being transported, there's no value added. That's transportation waste. When I need to move, when I need to do, let's say that I need to tighten a screw or something like that, I need to add a screw to it, and every single time that I've done this, I need to go back, grab a screw, go back, and put that screw in there. That's motion, that's me, that's the worker who's actually, who's moving. So that's another type of waste. What you would see here, and especially in software engineering, is context switching. That's an awful lot of motion. When you're working on a certain project, and then there's a project manager from another project that you worked on 2 or 3 months ago, and there's a defect in production, and you need to help fix that, right? And then suddenly you got to work on that project. You have all of this thing in your head from the project that you're currently working on, and you need to go back with your full mind and your full attention to this other project to figure out what the problem is and how to solve it. That is an awful lot of motion. That's you as a worker moving. Waiting. Whenever you're waiting for somebody else's input, software engineering examples, waiting for approvals, waiting for development environments to be ready, waiting for requirements to have 17 signatures before you can actually start implementing them. That's all not adding value. Extra processing, gold plating, typically. All that is waste as well. Then we get to unused creativity. Unused creativity is not using everyone's knowledge, not using all of the knowledge and all of the intelligence in the room in order to get your work done. That's unused creativity. It's a huge type of waste. In this workshop, you've already seen a few. We don't really do or extra processing, at least, because we're not bothering with writing these things down in Word or PowerPoint or anywhere you otherwise would put it. We reduce the waiting because people are here in the room all the time. We reduce overproduction, extra processing to some degree as well, because we limit the iterations to 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the type of task that we do. And because of that, because you're limited, you can't do too much, right? You kind of are forced to come up with something because your peers are kind of waiting for you as well, right? They will have done something, so you better come up with something too. We try to reduce defects because there's an awful lot of people in the room, and everybody's opinion will get rid of that. The product is not moving. We don't send an idea that we have here and send it off to somebody else by email and then waiting for 2 weeks until it comes back with comments. We don't do that. So all of this is happening in the room. Taking all that waste into account, taking the process into account of agile thinking, the things that I said, know what your goal is, understand what your context is, and find feedback as fast as you possibly can. Could you, for those 5 things, come up with a couple of actions, improvements to workshops that would mitigate those challenges? And again, don't worry, I want you to come to a conclusion yourself as well, and then after this I'll give you the full process of how this workshop works. But I wanted to give you some kind of a flavor of how it feels to go through it as well. So I want you in the same groups, or whatever groups you have now, brainstorm mitigating actions or improvements that would reduce the impact of those challenges. I give you some ideas and some ideas already, but I hope that you come up with more. 3 minutes, would that be all right? Okay. I feel you guys are all falling asleep, so I need to get you back to work. 3 minutes, I've started.
No, go. I was going to say, I'm going to suggest sometimes that we agree that this is the start. The person that will if it's a predefined goal, that means one person who set up the workshop is deciding what the goal is. Yes. Goal at start. I would probably go with insurance and owners. So you don't need to work on that. You deal with the prioritization. We don't work very much stuff before. But you said the thing that agreement is the
For trust and safety, it was that idea with the experts that validate, to have experts that validate ideas.
No, I don't think it's about that. Trust and psychological means that somebody doesn't think that if they come up with an idea, there is somebody who is going to say, no, that's stupid, how dare you come to this meeting.
How do you resolve that?
It's a good question. It's a good question.
He mentioned that there are experts that do not.
Don't forget, you only have 3 minutes, right? I'm sure you're already 2 in there.
But the other thing I would say to additional people to ensure
1 minute left, as I said.
Having experts in the conversation to validate, then that's, I guess, something that can be discussion by other people, which is needed.
We'll write it down. Kind of brainstorming.
Okay.
Yeah, that's relating to authority, but as was mentioned before, if the expert is rude, then he will stop all the discussion. Yeah.
No authority. That kind of experts kind of help the authority too.
30 seconds.
That's a
The person who knows about something is not always the person who decides what's going to be done.
No, okay.
But he can validate if an idea. Yeah, if an idea is not good, he can validate it. I mean, because as I said, everyone can have an opinion, but you need to validate it.
Somebody will fix it for you. Okay, that was 3 minutes. So that was 3 minutes. There is people who have not moved yet, correct?
Yeah.
One of those goes to the left, one of those goes to the right.
See you guys.
This should not take too long. Get off your seats.
You started it again.
Okay, so again, the same thing. Again, the same thing as before. You have about 3 minutes to refine your list.
Where are you guys right now?
Survive is a really good example of a productive workplace.
Clear objective in advance of the meeting, of the thing, and also making sure everyone's in agreement with what it means.
That helps us to make sure
Talk about it in small groups.
It's kind of related to a couple different things. It's also related to the participation.
Authority.
Yeah, we never got to know.
What's the incentive today?
So the low trust. And we never hit no authority.
We had some
So if you guys have any suggestions or thoughts on no authority or
Which
more thoughts on the one authority.
But if that is agree on a goal to start, like a frame line,
We're talking about this reminder too.
Halfway through.
necessitates everyone's.
You need to tell everybody what the goal is.
Yeah, I see that.
If you just tell everybody, then you don't have to. I think that's instead of like agreed goal, that's right. It goes through that process, right? Builds it.
Yeah,
Bring the that's
yeah, so that's, we can clarify that. That is, it's the same idea. Does this cover the 5 minutes?
If you only get 80%, that's good. I prefer to tackle 80%.
I thought you were saying, enough.
Anything else for
Another one, so like.
Make sure the right thing there.
Sure. So we have experts.
They are very right.
How would you write that?
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to stop it again. I want again one person to go to the left and one person to go to the right. Again, all the people than before. So that everyone has moved. Everyone should have moved by now. So one person to the left, one person to the right. And contribute.
Just get the rest of that. Here's that to report to.
Oh man, people hate me for this, but I do this just afternoon. Just after lunch. Okay, 2 minutes. Refine your list, please. Explain it to the new people and contribute.
The stakeholder that's either present, if I'm okay with that, or is able to.
Okay, so person, the common goal, person, the goal starts. Small groups will prevent it from being unbalanced. Having experts validate the ideas
Before the workshop, ensure that
and
so,
trust that the idea is correct.
this is kind of like last week,
And then
communicating
to address the authority problem, you need to come up with an action plan to
Start with an
present your plan to the authority.
Also,
One of the things we said also was to actually have a goal
co-create the goal.
before you get into it, and then make sure that everybody understands it.
Right, so this is kind of like,
So we kind of had a little bit of a different twist to that, but there has to be a reason for
so consciously draw everyone that's kind of related to it.
Initial motivation.
it. Yeah, initial goal, and then make sure you clearly.
I think everyone's gonna have small groups as
One of the things, why, what,
well, it works.
Add them all. Where, how,
Actually, right.
But I'm balancing, if you make the group small, then not everybody, you don't have lots of ideas. So to unbalance, I guess it's a matter of to offer the opportunity each one to speak, isn't
actually,
it?
that's good. We actually said that too, because we actually found in one of our groups, one person wasn't saying anything, and he said, would you like to offer something to add, even though we had a small group.
Yeah.
coulisses.
Yeah, and I think that would be easier in a small group. If you're in a large group, you have like 10 people.
Can you add to small groups and go to unbalance
He
there?
said the same thing, small groups.
To offer a voice to each one or something.
15 minutes, sorry. 3 minutes are over again, or 2 minutes at least.
15 minutes?
No, it wasn't 15. It might have felt that way, but it wasn't. Okay, so here's the time we have to move. We have to move forward. Unfortunately, I kind of was a little bit going over my time. Can I hear? Normally, what I would do with you guys is I would have you prioritize it again and get me the top 3, top 4 things, so you could start experimenting with that. But we're not going to do that for the interest of time. I think you get kind of the idea of how the workshop is run. I'm going to walk you through the whole thing in detail as well. Could you just tell me what you came up with? Because I want to hear those ideas. Yeah, doesn't matter who starts. Yeah, go ahead.
We had have predefined objectives.
Yeah.
Have a stakeholder in the room or committed in some way.
Yeah.
Before the workshop, ensure you have the resources to accomplish your solution.
Able to, yeah.
Activities in small groups to get people involved.
Oftentimes, getting back to the previous one, oftentimes, if you have the sponsor in the room and the sponsor has the authority to actually go through this, you don't necessarily need to have your team assigned already. They will go after it if what comes out of the workshop is valuable for them. Yeah.
Also, having a clear language so that everyone understands what each other means.
Yeah.
And collaborate to build a framework for participation.
Okay. Good. Anyone else? Things to add.
Different words.
Yeah.
The only thing that was missing was record your actions and assign owners.
Yeah. Good. You said something different. You rules of engagement you brought up, right?
Yeah.
You said it as well in the end, but you had it explicitly as rules of engagement. I'm going to say something about that later on. Okay. What do you have?
We have another one about making sure that all the right people are in the room, and how having experts will give people confidence that they have a correct solution.
Yep.
And potentially having everybody collaboratively build the goal at the start of the meeting instead of the goal itself.
Yep.
But you also need some initial goal to begin with. So.
Right. This is good. This is really good what you guys came up with. And well, obviously I infused it a tiny bit with the exercises, but this is really good. You kind of have very important aspects of it. You can all sit down because I'm going to cut out a piece of the workshop to get to the end, because otherwise you won't have enough time to go and drink beer afterwards. Okay, so what is the process? And this is important, right? So what is the process? Well, I told you already. This is the process. This is the process. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it right now. You have 2 parts to it. You have a planning part, and you later will have an execution part. The first part of the planning, what is that you think?
Magic.
Identify the objective. So what is that objective? And that's before the workshop happens. So what I typically do, and it takes for me, it takes half an hour to an hour, that's maximum. I go and speak to the sponsor who has the problem. I go and speak to the sponsor and I actually listen to what they want to get from those workshops. And the less preparation they have done, the better it is. Because the more the workshop actually has freedom to do whatever they need to do. The more complex and the more undefined the solution domain is, the solution space is, the better it is for the workshop. Second thing is, identify the stakeholders. Now, usually I did a workshop around this, especially to also make you figure out what those stakeholders are, because that's always an issue. And I heard that you need to have the right people in the room. The way that I summarize it is, people doing the work, people requesting the work, people impacted by the work, and people who can block the work. Those last ones are always forgotten. The first 3 groups, usually not a problem. Everyone has this. But these ones are usually forgotten. Those are the security experts. Those are the PMOs. Those are the ones that can actually block you from implementing this. HR. Make sure that you have those as well. Do not forget them. This is a simple rule of thumb, right? If you're figuring out what do my stakeholders need to be, think about those 4 things. Requesting the work, doing the work, impacted by the work, and who can block the work from actually happening. Those are the 4. And ensure that all those groups are represented. Does not mean that the actual people who are there are in the workshop, that they are represented. Oftentimes the people who are impacted by the work are people who have absolutely nothing to do with the project as such. You can grab anyone who is free. You can grab a student who is, summer comes up, right? So you have an awful lot of, most companies have a couple of students working for them as well during the summer. Bring some of those people in, they have fresh ideas. They can contribute an awful lot more than you might think. Bring administrative personnel in that otherwise do not necessarily understand what you guys are always working on. Bring them in. It will enlighten them. They will bring fresh ideas. And they will be very engaged as well to actually understand what you guys are doing. Right? So it's usually extremely valuable. This is a rule of thumb that I use all the time. It has proven to be very valuable. So execution. The first thing you do during the execution, I did it in the beginning, is align the stakeholders. How do you do that? Well, very simple. What are you here for? That's the first thing. Clearly specify what the objective is of this particular workshop. How are you going to do it? That's another thing. Because this is a very unfamiliar workshop for many people. People who've done it before, they're used to it and they don't want anything else. But people who've never done this before, you better explain it up front and you say like, yeah, you're only going to have 3 minutes. Get used to it. I told you in the beginning as well, don't get used to your seat because you're going to move around. You're going to work in micro iterations. Give some of that already so that resistance goes away. People should not be thinking about the process while they're actually going through a workshop. They should be thinking about the outcome of the workshop, what you're trying to achieve, the work that needs to be done. And the other thing is, and this is an interesting thing that you brought up, you said, or your team at least brought up, you said, come with a common goal, build that common goal with the group, but you need some kind of introduction. Now, some kind of introduction is the context. Why are we doing this? What is the space in which we're actually doing this? And usually that is the sponsor who can best explain that. And he will state the problem as well, but not necessarily in those clear terms. So as a facilitator, you can do something better there, which is why you need to have a conversation with those sponsors. I will not run any of those workshops without the sponsor committing to being there. If the sponsor is not committed to being there, forget it, you have no authority in the room. Anything that you come up with, who knows what's going to happen with that, right? So if you have the sponsor in the room, you will have people around the room way more engaged, first of all, because they believe that it's something valuable for the organization, otherwise the sponsor would never do that. And at the same time, the sponsor is committed to, by looking everyone in the eye as well, is committed to drive this a tiny bit further. So I would never do it. So align the stakeholders is the first thing. It shouldn't take too long. Oftentimes, depending on if I have a full day, I'll let the sponsor present for half an hour. Why are we doing this in the first place? What is the context? Why does it fit within the company strategy and so forth? After this, you execute. Execution is a small iteration. That's it. And what you're doing is, first of all, work in small groups. I already explained why that was, right? I explained it's because you want to have everyone involved. It's because you want to have all opinions. It's because you want to have reduction of the waste, what is then used to creativity. Use short time boxes so that you wouldn't overproduce, so that you would focus on the things that matter most. Stick to whiteboards and so forth so that you don't have to fight with all the technology that never works when you need it to work, right? And then you come up with what you're doing, you come up with a couple of things. One small step at a time. This is important as well. I don't know if you noticed that, but I said at the beginning, brainstorm as many ideas. I don't want you to prioritize. Don't challenge one another on ideas. If you want to prioritize, do this as a separate step. Do this in an extra iteration. Focus on one thing only. Make it as small as possible. Make it as clear as possible so you can focus and you can optimize the outcome of the small time that you only have. Design exercises. We'll do a design exercise in the end. Categorization. Brainstorming questions. Make sure that they're brainstorming questions. Don't have questions that ask for a calculation or something like that. A good question might be, when I talk about design exercises, can also be the design of an architecture of a solution. It might be. That's fair. And for those iterations, I for instance, give them 10 minutes. It kind of depends on where you go. You need to feel this out. I had a thing still in there, so I wanted to have you brainstorm about what powerful questions would be, but I'm just going to give them to you in the interest of time. What problems are we trying to solve? So you saw that specifically. What will make this project successful? What would make it fail, right? What are mitigating actions? What are the risks? How can we validate those risks? Those are the kinds of questions that you want to ask. Things that you can brainstorm about. Not like, what is the cost of this? Because that's one number that you need to come up with. This is not a brainstorming action, right? Do this on the side if you need to. Once you've done the execution, you integrate. Integration means you've worked in small groups now. Now you want to make sure that all of these ideas of those small groups turn into one big idea, or a list of ideas that you share with the entire group. And you do this for a few reasons. One, you want to report back. And you want, during the iterations, during the execution phase, you want to focus on getting results, and the peer pressure will actually help you get those results. You also want to get ideas from other groups, and you want to include those in your next iteration, right? And somehow you want to mix the groups to get every opinion and making sure that you're not stuck in one. As I said, I've done this with a group of 60, 70 people. And not once, the first time that I did this, I asked you all, like, just shout out what you have. But not once in that group of 60, 70 people did I do that. They were actually in separate rooms because we couldn't brainstorm all in the same room. So they were all in separate rooms, and I just had people moving around all the time. And in the end, there was one solid, common vision of what the problem was, what the problems were, what the solutions were. And the particular one that I'm thinking of right now was one that I did in Calgary with a group of 70 people who they were replacing. It's a large organization, I'm not going to name it because of the camera. They were replacing the point of sale in many of their stores around Canada. Now, a point of sale replacement is not a small project. In a half day, we actually planned it, the entire thing. The whole rollout, how we would do it, the whole, all of the challenges that we had, the roadmap, if you will. And at the end, I asked everyone around the room, like, hey, how did this work for you? And the first one who spoke was a sponsor. And he said, oh, we've done this before. And I said, okay, this is not good, right? And I said, we've done this before. We said 3 weeks around the room with as many people as here, and we didn't even get as much done as you guys got done in 4 hours. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't expect that, but okay. So this is really important. Mix those groups, and mix them crisscross all the time. Don't make it predictable. Right? Make sure that everyone interacts with everyone. What do you do after integration?
Iterate.
Iterate, yeah, exactly. Go back to execute, right? And you do this over and over and over again. And you always, so what I do, my questions that I talked about, right? So my execute questions, I have, before I start the workshop, I have an idea in my head of what would be the questions that I would need to answer if I would solve this problem all by myself. Well, first I would ask myself this, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? Then I would ask myself that, then I would ask myself that, then I would ask myself that. I have a high-level structure of how I would run that workshop. And I only use the first 3. And then I need to be creative during the process. But I have an idea of what the direction is of those questions going through the workshop. Because you need to take the input from the audience. And after this, you close. And closing is really important because you want to get to those actions, right? You want to make sure that what comes out of this workshop is actually implemented, that you're doing something with it. So you're sure that you close all loose ends, actually, or you tie all loose ends, and you agree on action points and give them to owners in the workshop. Do not leave the workshop without doing that. And do not, again, get stuck on, yeah, we'll send you a report in Word in 2 weeks, because you're actually losing momentum. What you want to do is you want to put pictures of stickies on the wall and whiteboards and flip charts. You want to put those pictures on a wiki or somewhere in a Dropbox folder or wherever you have access to it so that everyone sees it. And if you then want to write a report or a short report to explain what all these things are, fine, you can do that. But make sure that you do not waste your time doing it and losing time for people to go over the results of the workshop again and actually do something with it, right? Make sure that you keep it as low tech as you possibly can. That's the process, that's it. One planning step, one execution step. It's not an awful lot, is it? I love these workshops because it doesn't take me an awful lot of preparation, but I always get valuable results, and people are energized during the workshops and afterwards as well. There's a few things that you need to be taken care of, and that's really important as well. Can we go 10 minutes over time? 5 minutes? Can we go 10 minutes over time? Okay, wonderful. If anyone needs to leave, you will not offend them, right? Beware of any predefined outcomes. I've run one of these workshops, and there was one person in the room, and I did not know it was a sponsor, and he actually knew already what the outcome was, or what he felt the outcome needed to be. Let's put it that way. But the organization had said, you do not start any project without going through those workshops. So he did the workshop. And it was frustrating for everyone in it. So don't do it. If you have predefined outcomes, stop the workshop as soon as you see it. It's very important. So be ready to, and this also applies to the facilitator. As I said, I prepare it by having all my questions, but I need to be ready to change every single question along the way. If the workshop goes in a direction that I had not anticipated, I gotta follow. As long as I keep the goal in mind, that's really important. And if they want to redefine the goal, that's fine as well, but we need to agree with the entire workshop then, with the entire group. And the facilitator facilitates, does not contribute. It's very hard to do both at the same time. Keep that in mind as well. Right mix of stakeholders. I talked to you about this already as well, about the rules actually that I follow. But domain knowledge and system knowledge, especially when you're talking about a solution in software engineering, make sure they're both present. Make sure you have an architect somehow, whether it's enterprise architecture, because those are sometimes part of the people who can block the work from happening. A solution architect in the team, or somebody with that knowledge at least. Somebody who knows the systems that you need to talk to, or that you need to implement or expand, but also domain knowledge. I've done workshops with 40 people, with business people who had absolutely no understanding of the technical back-end systems that we need to change, and a whole bunch of technical people. And what I did was, I actually ran 2 workshops in parallel. One with 6 people who were the business plus 1 technical guy, and the other group with, like, I don't know, all the rest, with 1 business guy. And so they did separate workshops, one about validating the business case, and one about actually implementing the solution for that problem. And every 15-20 minutes, they integrated. They integrated here in smaller iterations, but every 15-20 minutes, they came together and integrated there as well. And what you actually got that after 2 hours, they figured out that the business case did not make any sense. And the reason why they figured it out was because the technical group had actually put a cost to the solution. Otherwise, it would have taken them like, hey, this business case makes total sense, and they totally did it. It did. They totally thought it did. They would send it off to IT. IT would start analyzing the whole freaking thing. They would build a whole solution for it. They would say, this is your cost. You would spend, I don't know how much money. It was, I'm sure it was a lot by then, because there was a lot of systems involved. And then you would say, like, oh, we can make $2 million. It costs us 2.5. Maybe that doesn't make an awful lot of sense, right? We had this in 2 hours, right? So it's quite an interesting thing. And you need decision-making authority in the room. Whatever happens in the room is law. You can run these workshops, don't get me wrong, you can run these workshops without decision makers in the room, but then you do it for a different purpose. Then you do it to propose something. And then you don't necessarily follow up on actions, but you build a proposal. And hopefully that proposal is chosen, right? Like for instance, if you are working in let's say you're working in a software engineering team and you do not have access to your business, and you want to come up with a roadmap, and you do not have the business in the room, you don't have access to them, they don't feel it's important enough to be engaged, whatever it is, run this workshop and build one of those roadmaps for yourself and then offer it to them. But that's an entirely different objective, right? Keep that in mind so that you're not demotivated afterwards, like, okay, we had this whole roadmap and now we can't implement it because the business was not in the room, so that's an important thing. In terms of facilitating, the facilitator's energy is what the other people, the participants, will model their energy. So keep that in mind as well if you're doing one of those. That's really it. So what if you want to use this beyond workshops? Well, I already told you that, right? This can be used anywhere. And this workshop, and I hope you see that, this workshop is a pure implementation of these principles. It's nothing else. It's very simple. And if you think about doing something that you've never done before, think about why you're doing it. Think about the context that actually might have an impact on your results. Think about how you can very quickly, and not after when you've done it, but very quickly while you're doing it, think about how you can get results, how you can get feedback about your results or what the result would be. And think about those ideas to actually help drive those results, help drive the feedback, help drive getting closer to your goal faster. Okay? And then, obviously, wherever you find waste, try and cut it out. That's what we should do all the time. So I want to wrap up, and I told you that there's design exercises. What I want you to do is, everybody takes a sheet and takes a pen or two or three. What I want you to do is, I want you to draw me something, draw you something. You all know what this is, right? This is an infographic. I found this yesterday. I thought it was quite inspiring. This is a very nice infographic of a design student. And it's about, it's actually about the health or the air quality in Toronto. And what infographics are really good at are summarizing what you guys have done. It's a visualization. So what I want you to do, and I'm not going to give you a lot of time, I'm going to give you 1 minute only. I'm going to give you 1 minute. So listen very carefully so everyone knows what you need to do in 1 minute. So in 1 minute, I want you to draw what you have learned so that you understand it. I want you to draw something that you have learned and that you take away from today's session. 1 minute only. Just draw it out for you. Whatever it is that comes to mind, just draw it out. I see people like with shades and stuff like that. Like 15 different colors, shading, 3D projection. You've done this before. I mean, drawing something like that. Oh, that was 1 minute. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is, I want you to leave that sheet right in front of you, and I want everyone to walk around the table and look at the other ones. Just see if you get something from it.
I might have plagiarized. It's a very specific drawings that look like letters.
This shouldn't take too long, guys, because we're going 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Hello. Nice.
Actually, and while you're doing this, I want to say something about rules of engagement. Well, no, I'm going to let you guys pay attention.
Symbols. Yeah.
Like iterating to create the same document?
Yeah, two different people.
Okay.
Iteration of problem space to find the intersection between them.
Okay. It's like people are almost back in their spots. Okay. So, I want to say something about the rules of engagement. Because I saw it in one of the drawings, so it's important to some people here. In my opinion, and you can all sit down again, in my opinion, the rules of engagement are taken care of by this process. I've never had any problems needing to make rule. Well, the only thing that I say in the beginning is no laptops, because they only will impede us to do the work, and phone conversations I want to have outside. And if people need to have a break, or they know already that they will have a break in the middle of the session or something like that, I try to build in that break for everyone. Right? Those are the things that I do. But apart from that, I don't find any issues with rules of engagement. I see people contributing all the time. Yeah, go ahead.
It might also be because people aren't as invested in the outcome of the workshop. It's more a personal gain. But I find that with some technical solutions, people become protective of their IP.
Yeah. Yeah, well, sure. Depends on how far you're in the technical solution you are. If you're very early on, then you can still work with this. Because what I would do, I would come in and say, look, if you really don't know, spend an hour on this, and see what's best, and let the team decide.
The nice thing about small groups then is if one person is very invested in their solution, they can only control one group at a time.
Yeah.
They will get to the other group and find that somebody else has said, well, what about you? And there's nobody to gainsay that. So unless they kind of spend their entire time now fighting their corner in this group, while at this point this group and someone else has come in and said, why are you doing that solution? That's
and that would come out during the integration part.
Yeah.
It would. And I work as a facilitator to address that. Right, and I will. And sometimes I give them, guys know something like lumber tax? Lumber tax is a concept that I learned from Jim McCarty. Jim McCarty is one of the people who made the core protocols and build a team lab and how to make teams actually work better together. A lumber tax is a tax that doesn't cost you anything, but you pay in order to be able to move forward, right? So when you have alpha males in the room, which we all do, I'm one of them, and oftentimes alpha males will not move forward unless there is something of them in the solution. Now, if that clearly is not the best solution, you don't, as a group, you do not want to commit to implementing that solution. Try to find something that does not cost you a lot to implement that. Even though it doesn't add any value, the value that it will add is that you as a team can move forward and you shut up that person. It's a very interesting, look up lumber tax, core protocols, Jim McCarty, he has a podcast about it, it's quite interesting. Okay, so I'm glad that you guys did this. You could do the same thing with design exercises. You looked around the table, you've explained those things to other people, and now you can have a second iteration, right? And this is actually how we drew user interface designs as well with people who are not even designers, right? And marketing people and developers and testers, and they all contribute to good ideas to the user experience design, and oftentimes it's a lot better. So wrapping it up entirely, this is the process. Again, it's not hard. You have a planning phase, identify objectives, figure out who the stakeholders are, and then do the execution. And the execution pretty much is open it, close it, and in the middle, do the very short iterations. Really short iterations, based on questions that every question gets you closer to that end goal that you're trying to achieve. And if you want to see it another way, and this is the other way, and I've seen that some people have drawn it actually. A lot of people working in small groups, they're interacting with one another, they generate ideas and questions, they all, through some magic and really short iterations, I call them micro iterations, end up in a product. That's it. Awesome. So, I apologize for having gone over time, but if you have questions, feel free to either ask them now, or I don't know what your plans are after this.
So I hope really it was kind of a side note down there that the facilitator's energy drives the participants' energy. And I think this is really true, so thank you. I really appreciate it.
Very well.
Does the facilitator also clean up?
Actually, I do. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that, but everyone knows open spaces? Not everyone, I'm assuming. If you don't know of open spaces is a format to run meetings where a facilitator, basically the only thing that they do is making sure that the space stays open, and the agenda is created by the audience or by the participants, and then they run kind of self-organized around how they run the meetings. The only thing that the facilitator does throughout the entire day or half day or however long the open space takes is making sure that there's no obstacles for the participants to do what they need to do. I was constantly moving around chairs so that you guys could stand around and I could move around without pushing you guys into the table a lot more. Or cleaning up. I do this all the time. Yeah, during those workshops. Absolutely. And I would now too, but I'm hoping you guys will help me out.
I had to ask.
Yeah.
So one more question. So does
Yeah.
normally when you run this, like steps 5 and 6, or whichever, do they happen over and over again?
Steps 5 and 6? Not well, 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
4 and 5, yes. We have to do all this again. So 4 and 5 for sure. So the execute and the integrate, they have it over and over and over again. All the time.
Questions?
Yes. So what you had as well, right? So the first time was, what are the challenges? The second time was, well, how can you mitigate those challenges? Well, no, actually, the second time was prioritize, right? Let me get through the whole thing, yeah. So these things happen over and over and over again. And it's actually, the gist of the workshop is this, nothing else. And it's always new questions, and those questions get you closer. So first, brainstorm ideas, then prioritize ideas, then work maybe on the top one, then work on the second one, then work on the third one, and see what the outcome is there. Can we bring all these action points down and categorize them? All of those things are individual small steps, but focus on it being one step only. Don't ask your team to list all these things and get me the top 3, because you will have conversations that do not generate enough ideas. Right? So you want to limit it to one specific small question that makes them very focused. Make sense?
Yeah.
Anything else? And I'm open to questions and answers afterwards as well.
Have you ever like changed your energy levels depending on the crowd?
Oh, yeah.
You've gone there, you're like,
Oh yeah.
all right, guys, come on. Like,
Yeah. You don't. Well. Yes. When you do this with executives, it requires a different kind of energy. It also requires energy, but a different kind of energy. Yeah.
oh, you wrote different notes.
One reminder on your way out, please don't hold the door open if it happens to be closed, because after 6 o'clock the alarm comes on, and if the door is held open for more than 20 seconds or something like that, people will visit us. So if there's a chain of you going through, let it close for a second. Thanks.